What and where is God, and what does it have to do with me? I am Sheefra Blume, your hostess, and this is the What is God podcast, where I interview people from all walks of life, and I ask them the simple question: how do you answer the question, what and where is God, and what does it have to do with me? And I ask you, the listener, how do you answer that question when you hear it? Do you have an answer? Or is it an ever unfolding development? And so that's what we're going to explore on this podcast. This first episode, I'm going to give you parts of my answer and also just let you know how this podcast idea began. Because the truth is, in some ways, it began back when I was about 10 years old. But really, when it started to come into fruition was about 16 years ago, when I was 20 years old. And I wrote an essay by that name, What and Where is God, and What Does It Have to Do with Me? I wrote an essay under that title, and I submitted it to a contest through the Jewish Learning Institute. And lo and behold, it was a finalist in the contest, and I got sent along with a handful of other college students to Princeton University to go give a presentation and share the findings of my essay, of my piece of writing, with a room full of international rabbis, doctors, and scholars who had come in from all over the world to hear us give our presentations and our arguments. And so I will link I'll have the original available somewhere for people who are interested. But that original essay, I researched and I have clips of me at 21 years old giving that speech to the room, really confidently giving my argument for what is God. And this has just been something that I have been so fascinated with, exploring and not only pondering what is God, but being able to articulate the inarticulable, to articulate that which is God, to put it into words. And so that is something I'm very passionate about, and that's what I'm getting to do here, is not only to put it into my words, but see how others put it into words. Because this concept of God, this concept of religion even, which seem to tell us how to believe in God, is something that has been so controversial and divisive throughout history. And yet, my definition of God has very much everything to do with oneness and inclusion and cohesiveness. And so the irony that something that ultimately encompasses all, where all is one, would be something that would cause so much division. And so my hope is that this podcast can truly be a space for all voices to be heard, for all voices to be considered, and through our exploration of that which we call God, through trying to get to know that which is ultimately unknowable, and yet it's always right here at our fingertips. My hope is that exploration will bring us together, that in our search and yearning and quest for something beyond, that we will find commonality and that we will be able to draw out underlying truths. So that is my hope and my prayer. You know, for me, I say this started when I wrote that essay 16 years ago, and I've been doing this ever since. I've been on this spiritual quest really since then, and even before. After college, I went to Israel, where I continued down that path of searching for what is God and what does it have to do with me? What and where is God and what does it have to do with me? And I got to study ancient mysteries with teachers who were able to help me unlock these ancient texts that were written in old languages. And it was a really beautiful experience. And what was very fascinating is that much of what I remembered actually simply confirmed that what I knew in my heart there were indeed other sources that confirmed what I already felt in my heart. And so again, I hope that will happen for many of you here too. I'm sure that throughout the journey of this podcast, we will have many different answers, some of which might be different and some of which might have a lot of commonalities with others. And so my hope is that whatever the feeling you have in your heart is, that you'll hear it repeated in the words of others, and that will again bring connection. Now, when I was about 10 years old, my dad was sick. He had cancer. And I remember praying to God and praying that if my dad would live, that I, as far as I can remember, I was 10 years old. It was a long time ago. But my memory is that I said, if God would let my dad live, I would make a school for God. And I never really meant like a elementary school or like a religious school or anything like that. But somehow in my heart, those were the best words I could find at 10 years old to articulate what I meant. And what I meant is really what this podcast is, which is a space for us to learn and explore and discover God. And so I'll share with you a little bit of my perspective on how I answer that question. And then I'll link in another episode where I go more into detail about my answer to the question of what and where is God and what does it have to do with me. I did an Instagram live with my sister not too long ago where we went into this topic. And so I'm going to link that episode because it's a longer episode where you can hear my full answer. But my short, pithy, one-liner answer to define the undefinable in a sentence is that God translates to being the infinite life force that animates all of creation in each moment anew. And so with that, I welcome you to the What is God podcast. I hope that you will subscribe. I hope that you will engage and share and be part of this exploration together.